American software pioneer John McAfee, 75, was found dead on Wednesday in a prison cell in Barcelona, Spain, according to McAfee's lawyers. Just hours earlier, a court in Spain had approved the extradition of McAfee to the U.S., where he was set to stand trial on federal tax evasion charges. Authorities are investigating the cause of death. An eccentric and brash millionaire known widely for his eponymous antivirus software, McAfee sold his stake in the company in the mid-1990s and spent his life globe-trotting and stumbling frequently into legal trouble. Eventually, he landed on an island off the coast of Belize, where he operated a palatial estate known to be the site of raging parties and illicit behavior. He fled the property after being named as a suspect in a murder there. McAfee bragged about being a tax dodge in a 2019 tweet, just as federal investigators were homing in on him. He was not able to run forever. McAfee was arrested in October 2020 in Spain for failing to file tax returns from 2014 to 2018 in Tennessee and concealing assets, including a yacht. John McAfee, the creator of a program that is among the most used virus protection programs worldwide, was a controversial figure, cryptocurrency promoter, tax opponent and fugitive who twice made long-shot runs for the U.S. presidency. He publicly embraced drugs, guns and sex, and had a history of legal woes spanning from Tennessee to Central America to the Caribbean. Born in the UK in 1945 as John David McAfee, he moved to the U.S. as a child and grew up in Virginia with a father who beat him mercilessly and killed himself when the boy was 15, according to Steve Morgan, who spent time with McAfee in Alabama in 2016 to talk about his life for a biography he'd been contracted to write. Morgan said talking about his father's death was the only time during their long meeting that McAfee cried. Gringo. The Dangerous Life of John McAfee review. Proto-Trump figure chills the blood. Read more. McAfee earned a bachelor's degree in mathematics in 1967 from Roanoke College, Virginia, and 2 decades later founded his eponymous company. At the time, Morgan said, he was operating a BBS, a bulletin board system that served as a precursor to the World Wide Web, and working with his brother-in-law. When the first major computer virus, called Brain, hit in 1986, John instantly dialed up a programmer he knew and said, "There's a big opportunity. We need to do something. We want to write some code to combat this virus," Morgan said. He called the program VirusScan and the company McAfee Associates. He was a true pioneer, not just as a security technologist, but as one of the first companies to distribute software over the internet, Morgan said. Advertisement. McAfee lost a fortune in the global financial crash in 2008 and emigrated to Belize, where he cultivated the image of a shirtless, highly kidnappable New Age medicines kingpin, complete with armed bodyguards and paroled gangsters. He also made a number of donations to local police. Nonetheless, California chipmaker Intel bought McAfee's company in 2011 for $7.68 billion. For a time, Intel sought to dissociate the brand from its controversial founder by folding it into its larger cybersecurity division. But the rebranding was short-lived, and Intel in 2016 spun out the cybersecurity unit into a new company called McAfee. In 2012, he was wanted for questioning in connection with the death of Gregory Vianfal, who was shot to death in early November that year on the island in Belize where both men lived. McAfee was living with a 17-year-old girl. "I do have teenage girlfriends and many at a time," he said in an interview included in a 2016 documentary. In 2019, a Florida court ordered McAfee to pay $25 million to Falls estate in a wrongful death claim. He refused to pay it, writing in a statement posted on Twitter that he has not responded to a single one of my 37 lawsuits for the past 11 years. He claimed to have no assets. A Wired magazine reporter who spent 6 months investigating his life that year recounted an incident in which McAfee played Russian roulette, repeatedly pulling the trigger on what he claimed was a loaded pistol, pointed at his head to illustrate a point. John McAfee. Bad people are still after me. Read more. Somewhat incongruously, McAfee remained an ardent defender of digital security. He was particularly concerned by Google, telling The Guardian in a 2015 interview that the company would have you believe if you have nothing to hide, why should you care if people know everything? When you first meet someone, you don't divulge your deepest secrets. If privacy doesn't matter, would you be willing to give your wallet to a total stranger and let them go through it and write down everything they find inside? Then why on earth would we believe that if we're not doing anything wrong, we shouldn't care if someone has our information? In the U.S., the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is at 800-273-8255 and online chat is also available. You can also text HOME to 741,741 to connect with a crisis text line counselor. In the UK and Ireland, Samaritans can be contacted on 116 123 or email joe@samaritans.org or joe@samaritans.ie. In Australia, the crisis support service lifeline is 13 11 14. Other international helplines can be found at www.befrienders.org. As you're joining us today from Vietnam, we have a small favor to ask. Tens of millions have placed their trust in The Guardian's high-impact journalism since we started publishing 200 years ago, turning to us in moments of crisis, uncertainty, solidarity and hope. More than 1.5 million readers from 180 countries have recently taken the step to support us financially, keeping us open to all and fiercely independent. With no shareholders or billionaire owner, we can set our own agenda and provide trustworthy journalism that's free from commercial and political influence, offering a counterweight to the spread of misinformation. When it's never mattered more, we can investigate and challenge without fear or favor. Unlike many others, Guardian journalism is available for everyone to read, regardless of what they can afford to pay. We do this because we believe in information equality. Greater numbers of people can keep track of global events, understand their impact on people and communities, and become inspired to take meaningful action. We aim to offer readers a comprehensive, international perspective on critical events shaping our world, from the Black Lives Matter movement to the new American administration, Brexit, and the world's slow emergence from a global pandemic. We are committed to upholding our reputation for urgent, powerful reporting on the climate emergency, and made the decision to reject advertising from fossil fuel companies, divest from the oil and gas industries, and set a course to achieve net zero emissions by 2030. If there were ever a time to join us, it is now. Every contribution, however big or small, powers our journalism and sustains our future. Support The Guardian from as little as $1, it only takes a minute. If you can, please consider supporting us with a regular amount each month. Thank you. John David McAfee, the founder of the antivirus software maker bearing his name, died in a prison in Spain on Wednesday after a Spanish court said he could be extradited to the United States on tax evasion charges. His death was confirmed by his lawyers. He was 75. After selling his pioneering virus-fighting firm in 1994 and losing most of his fortune during the 2008 financial crisis, Mr. McAfee led a peripatetic life that included a turn to paranoia and a string of arrests around the globe. That all culminated in his detention in Spain in 2020 after prosecutors in the United States accused him of not filing tax returns for several years. The indictment filed by the Justice Department said Mr. McAfee had earned millions from promoting cryptocurrencies, consulting work, speaking engagements, and selling the rights to his life story for a documentary, and had tried to avoid taxes by using cryptocurrency and channeling the money through bank accounts. He could have faced prison time if convicted. Mr. McAfee said he had been arrested despite paying millions of dollars in taxes and resisted extradition, claiming he faced political persecution for denouncing corruption in the Internal Revenue Service and opposing the fiat money system, in which central banks like the Federal Reserve control the money supply. But on Wednesday, the Spanish court released its decision to allow the Justice Department's request to extradite him, saying there was no supporting evidence that such a thing could be happening. John McAfee, the antivirus software pioneer who founded cybersecurity company McAfee, was found dead Wednesday in a jail cell in Spain, his attorney said. A Spanish court earlier in the day ordered the extradition of Mr. McAfee, 75 years old, in connection with a federal criminal proceeding in Tennessee. Mr. McAfee had been detained in the country since October in connection with criminal charges filed in Tennessee by the Justice Department's tax division. The Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Office also sought the extradition of Mr. McAfee in a separate criminal case. John was and will always be remembered as a fighter, said Nishike Sainin, an attorney representing Mr. McAfee in U.S. criminal proceedings. He tried to love this country, but the U.S. government made his existence impossible. Mr. Sainin said the court ruling Wednesday would be appealed in the next few days. Spanish authorities will investigate the cause and circumstances of Mr. McAfee's death, according to a government official. In December, a court rejected a request by Mr. McAfee that he be freed, saying he was a flight risk and that remaining in the jail near Barcelona didn't pose a risk to his health. Mr. McAfee founded the company that still bears his name in 1987, but he sold his stake in the 1990s for more than $100 million. Although John McAfee founded the company, he has not been associated with our company in any capacity for over 25 years, a McAfee Corporation spokeswoman said via email Wednesday. That said, our thoughts go to his family and those close to him. In the mid-2000s, Mr. McAfee gave up the corporate world and spent millions of dollars building a series of airstrips in the southwestern U.S., where he indulged his passion for aerotrekking or low-altitude flyover exploration of desert terrain. In recent years, he had focused on cryptocurrencies, which he promoted with an outlaw image and a reputation for brash pronouncements. In 2017, Mr. McAfee in a tweet predicted that Bitcoin would be valued at $500,000 within 3 years, a prediction that failed to come to pass. Mr. McAfee earned millions promoting cryptocurrencies, charging speaking fees and providing consulting services, but failed to pay taxes on this income, federal prosecutors say. Authorities accused him of failing to file tax returns between 2014 and 2018 and avoiding taxes by naming other people as the owners of his assets in cryptocurrency accounts, real estate and even a yacht. In March, federal prosecutors in New York charged Mr. McAfee with fraud, saying he deceptively promoted cryptocurrencies via his Twitter account. Mr. McAfee and his associates made more than $2 million via a pump-and-dump scheme, where they promoted a dozen little-known cryptocurrencies on Twitter, then dumped the assets once their value had increased, prosecutors said. In a statement posted on a website last year, Mr. McAfee said he hadn't filed a tax return since 2010 and that he previously contacted the IRS about his plans. In a March tweet, Mr. McAfee said he was being used as a scapegoat in a broader U.S. crackdown against cryptocurrencies. In one of his last public messages on Twitter, sent last week to his 1 million followers, Mr. McAfee claimed that his cryptocurrency assets had dissolved and the government had seized his remaining assets. "My friends evaporated through fear of association," the tweet said. "I have nothing. Yet, I regret nothing." Mr. Sainin said the court ruling Wednesday was going to be appealed in the next few days and that the New York extradition was still pending in a lower court in Spain. Mr. McAfee founded the security company that still bears his name in 1987, but he sold his stake in the business in the 1990s and had not been involved in the company's operations for decades. John McAfee, the creator of the eponymous antivirus software, was found dead Wednesday in prison outside Barcelona. He was 75. Over the past decade, McAfee gained notoriety for his ranting on social media, his involvement in a Central American criminal investigation, and accusations from U.S. authorities that he was involved with pumping and dumping cryptocurrencies. McAfee was discovered dead in his prison cell hours after Spain's national court approved his extradition to the U.S. over multiple tax fraud charges. He was found by security personnel at the Brians II prison in northeast Spain, according to a spokesperson of the Supreme Court of Catalonia. Spanish newspaper La Vanguardia reported that McAfee appeared to have died by suicide, citing a statement from the Regional Department of Justice of Catalonia, where he was being held. McAfee had been in Spanish custody since October on a June 2020 U.S. indictment, in which he was charged